Harlem Renaissance brings to mind sounds of jazz, new literature and authors, and beautiful pieces of artwork. The evolution of culture and pride at this time has been credited with sparking the fire of the 1950s and 1960s civil rights movements through the creations of hardworking Black individuals in a time of discrimination. Rising from a place of maltreatment to becoming the inventors of jazz and the developers of the cultural community in Harlem, New York, shows that being American is synonymous with strength and perseverance. The African American community residing in Harlem during the 1920s, despite the oppression of the time, created one of the most lasting and influential eras of Black culture in the United States, and arguably one of the most significant portrayals of what it means to be American. Authors, musicians, and artists made the time an opportunity for any one person to make an impact on the time in which they lived, as well as proving the American dream of being an independent, successful, and influential person. In the years prior to the Renaissance and cultural boom of the 1920s, the Great Migration caused an influx of African Americans to the north. Cities were soon populated with individuals hoping to escape their accumulated debt from sharecropping, as well as pursue jobs in the growing industry of manufacturing. New York City, along with Chicago and several other northern cities, was the destination for so many that overpopulation was a common occurrence in the north. Harlem was meant to become an upper-class white neighborhood, but the residents were soon outnumbered and left. Black middle-class families moved in and established the neighborhood. The Great Migration was the change many needed to escape their former lives, as well as make new, better lives for themselves and their families. This congregation of Black families with a similar financial status would soon prove to be the perfect environment for an impactful artistic society within Harlem.
Don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing. It don't mean a thing, all you gotta do is swing. Makes no difference if it's sweet or hot. Just give that rhythm every little thing you've got. It don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing.
During the Harlem Renaissance, there was no shortage of talented people who contributed everything from magazines to onstage entertainment. Langston Hughes, one of the better-known authors of the time, focuses his efforts in writing on the portrayal of life for a Black person during the 1920s America. According to a biography about him, Hughes refused to differentiate between his personal experience and the common experience of Black America. He wanted to tell the stories of his people in ways that reflected their actual culture, including both suffering and their love of music, laughter, and language itself. The integration of personal experiences and the experiences of the group created an atmosphere of togetherness and success as a whole, something seen as very American, similar to the way minorities group together to make change for everyone through legislation and protest. Josephine Baker, an anthropologist and author, worked alongside Hughes to produce a play called Mule Bone, a comedy of Negro life in 3 acts, as well as her novel Jonas Gourdvine, which was well liked for its lack of sentimentality. Baker's work, using comedy and authenticity, went beyond the entertainment factor to humanize a minority and gather support through the emotions of her audience. Being an author at this time would not only provide reading material and higher literacy, it would create novels, articles, and literature about real experiences that have potential to change minds and instigate societal development. Along with writers, artists like Aaron Douglas never failed to include modern and African art into the cultural scene. In 1933, Douglas started one of his more famous works, a series of murals entitled Aspects of Negro Life that featured 4 panels, each depicting a different part of the African American experience. The exposure of real issues experienced by an underrepresented group through captivating art allows for a new media outside literature to provide a new perspective. With the same idea as Langston Hughes, Douglas used the arts to illustrate the experiences he and his community had during the 1920s. Art and music are undeniably the more glamorous and colorful products of a cultural renaissance during the Roaring '20s. Art styles are known to evolve through time, but Black artists often focused on modernist primitivism or a Freudian psychology take on art. It is characterized by a primitive relationship with the world and resisting the over-civilized white rules. African art was also a frequent inspiration as it had a focus on heritage, something often misunderstood and misrepresented at the time. Art and literature are absolutely essential to the progress scene in Harlem, but neither can compare to the music, which was undoubtedly a worldwide success. The blues were an international sensation, and records made spreading the genre to listeners easily accessible. The demand for nationwide musical tours brought Alberta Hunter, Claire Smith, Bessie Smith, Ma Rainey, and others from a measly job in the circuits to worldwide fame. The Jazz Age, as this decade was coined, lived up to the name as new instruments became additions to orchestras, and musicians like Louis Armstrong grew to be infamous in the genre.
Come on, folks, everybody sing. Now when the saints go marching in. Now when the saints go marching in. Yes, I want to be in that number. When the saints go marching in. Sing it again. Now when the saints marching in. Now when the saints go marching in. Yes, I want to be in that number. When the saints go marching in. Ah, y'all sing pretty out there. Sure, Darring's boy. Come young.
The Harlem Renaissance opened doors into the development of Black culture in the early 20th century unlike any time period prior. Art, music, literature, and pride worked hand in hand to create Harlem's atmosphere into a hub of culture.
Hi, welcome to Chili's.